The smudge tool is something I use quite a bit when it comes to the, it's way too strong. Now, so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to just smudge out some of those the lines that have it still going across the angle like that. And so now, because I can go back in now and try to fix that, I'll go back into my tools. This toolbar on the side gives you all the different brushes that you can use. And so I have to apologize for the big scream you hear in the background. That is my computer trying to keep up with me, trying to do some fairly complex stuff. Now, all I'm trying to do is get this a little bit chunkier so it looks a little bit more like leaves. And so in order to do that, you sort of have to go in. Layers are always a beautiful thing for creating depth in your painting. And so you can see as I put this on, it starts to get, you can see it starting to sink back into the background. And so that's why it takes me 4 times as long as Bob. When Bob paints, he's like, look, there it is. What do you think? He does it with one stroke. And when I'm painting anything, including this, when I'm doing traditional painting, like what he's doing, I can't paint at his speed. I don't know of anybody that can. He's very quick and he's very decisive. And I tend to get to a point where I go, oh, that's ugly. And then I have to wipe it out and start over again, or wipe it out and go back and then try to figure out what I had done wrong and then try to fix it and so on. So, so you can see how though you can start to see some of the outer edges is where you're going to have some of these leaves showing through. And so I've lost the first 2 rounds to Bob fairly handily. He schooled me on some of his techniques and how to do this stuff. And so I can't even hope to be close to what he was doing and at the speed that he does it. But I'm going to incorporate some of my own styles into this stuff, and hopefully we'll start to see some of the things that are important to me in a drawing, and how his style of painting is so awesome and it's so eye-catching, and he's so good at putting contrasts in that you end up with some very classy and very well done paintings when he does them. And everybody knows Bob Ross because of what he does. And so my whole goal now is just to try to incorporate some styles, some of my own style into this stuff. And you can see how the nibs are starting to create what would be considered a very leafy background. So you see how it's changed a pile since the first time, since the very beginning when I started this. You can see some of the colors are starting to fill in, and you can see it's almost like paint by number. Once you get the right settings, you can now. Did you notice how my computer just shut off like that? That's when it's a little indication that, okay, I pressed on something that it obviously didn't like. I was pressing too hard. So you always want to make sure that you save the current sketch, and then you save copies of it continuously along the way, so that you can always come back to it without losing it. And so you don't want to lose what you're doing. but you also don't want to, you just don't want to lose it. So make sure you're recorded as often as you possibly can, so you're not missing it. Okay. So I'm quite pleased with what I've got now for the leaves in the background. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the drawing of the trees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the trees I'm going to put in as a different layer. So it's over top of this background. And so the trees I want to be fairly solid. And so I think what I'll do is I'll start with a pencil's really hard, but let's see what sort of flow with the pressure. I don't want any special nibs or anything like that. Let's go back to just the basics. And then the size will allow me to draw the trees that I want. So opacity, let's put it at about halfway. And so it's not too solid. Now, some of these, I'm just going to put some of the effects in there for the way Bob's got his in there. So I'm going to draw them up the sides, draw my trees. Let's go a little bit wider. And let's strengthen this. Now, I know that when most people are painting, everyone has their own style of doing branches and doing different parts of trees. So that's kind of the uniqueness of doing something like this, is that every painting will end up a little bit different. And so what I'm doing here is I'm moving. I want it wider, but I don't want it to be so opaque. Opacity, I want the opacity to be not so heavy and not so light. And I want to change the strength of my pencil each time I draw a tree, so it gives some variation. And so you don't end up with exactly the same trees all the time. The farther away, the less distinct your colors are going to be. So I went down to halfway there, and I shouldn't have. It's too narrow. So you don't want to go down to half or anything like that, but you do want it to be smaller. So the nice thing about the Apple Pencil too, like if I go like this, look how thick this is. And then look how thick it is if I go sideways. So if I want it to narrow out as I'm going up, I just go up more to a point. So wide, narrow, and then to a narrow point. So when I'm drawing something like this, go sideways and then narrow out, straighten up, and then the branch can actually just fade off. And so same thing on this one, go sideways, bend your branch to your side a little bit and straighten up, and it becomes narrower as you go along. And so there's two, that's a method of doing it with an Apple Pencil. It's one of the reasons why I went to an iPad. I used to be using an Android system because it was pressure sensitive, and then Apple came out with this one, which is pressure sensitive. And so I like the pressure sensitivity because it allows you to create very interesting drawings, and it acts more natural. For those people that are used to drawing, it becomes more natural. Okay, so you can see the branches are starting to come together. So the goal here is to create what you hope some very realistic tree branches. As Bob says, be free, just draw the trees. Just let the branches draw themselves. Not too sure what that means. When you've drawn enough, you will get the feel for a brush and the feel for how to create things a little bit darker and lighter. Cap is getting in the way here. Let's change the color again. So now I'm at this one. So it's still a little bit lighter. This side is feeling a little lonely. I need some more branches. So the other nice thing is that if you want to see what you're working with, like if you shut off the background and shut this off, it'll show you exactly what you have for trees. And it'll show you where you need to work on some areas that are not drawn correctly. Like see this? That means that that tree isn't dark enough in certain areas. So, and it doesn't look like the branch belongs to it. So the same thing here. You see how you can see through the tree? That's not the effect you want. With a little thin line behind it, that's not the effect you want. You want it to be solid enough that it all flows together cleanly and neatly. And so having that little line in there is a little bit distracting. Okay, so you see how the bigger the trees are, like you have the spaces, and you just continue to draw like this. With the rest of the backgrounds, which is distracting a lot of times and doesn't allow you to look at the balance of how you have your trees, that you have a general balance over all of the work, the piece of work that you're working on. So when I delete stuff like that, it's very similar to when I get stuck on a painting and I think I'm done. Flip it over, because a lot of times if you look at it from a different angle, like me looking at it here and then me looking at it up on the screen, shows me different things and things that I'm missing. So I have my computer set up here that allows me to see what I'm drawing on a screen as well as on my tablet. That's the best art studio you could possibly get when it comes to being able to identify what you like and what you don't like. And so I'm going to go down to a little bit smaller here. So I just sort of blended those together a little bit because it didn't look like that tree was all a single tree. This skinny one here is freaking me out. So I'm picking it up. Freaking me out to the extreme. It wasn't really freaking me out. It was just not doing what I wanted it to. So we just keep drawing. Drawing my branches. And then I'm going to get to the stage where then I go to an even lighter color, and then I also then. So I was on this one last time, so now I'm on that one. Now I'm on this one, so even lighter still. So what you may want to use this for is on the side of some of these trees that are facing the light. Now you remember this is my light source in the very middle. So right here is my light source. And so because that's my light source, you have to keep that in mind. So that on this side of the tree, we always have the light hitting it. And so this is the stuff when I was drawing the picture yesterday. I liked the way the picture turned out, and my sister loved it. And so the drawing itself turned out okay, but what it was missing was some of these fine little details that myself, I look at it and I go, yeah, it turned out okay. And yes, Bob's right, it's a very fast painting, and it's one that you can create and be successful no matter what sort of skills you have, skill level you have. But my goal now is to create one with a little bit more detail, with a little bit more finesse. And with a little bit more pizzazz. Some details. Now, Bob Ross is one of the best known artists around by the general population. And he's become a little bit more of a cult. He has more of a cult following now, simply because there's a gentleman who was just plain nice. And a phenomenal artist, a very quick artist, has the ability to create very quick paintings, stuck with it. And so one of the things that people say is if you want to become a good artist, you have to have the desire to be consistent when you're drawing and to practice it. It's like any other skill. As an art teacher, I always found it amazing that people would actually make the general statement is, I can't draw. Well, the first question I always ask them, if they were my students, I'd ask them, so how often do you draw? Well, I don't, because I can't. Well, if someone came into my volleyball clinic and said, I can't play volleyball, people don't treat art the same way they treat volleyball or another sport. They don't automatically assume they can't do it. The only thing they say is that I need to practice it more. And coaches will tell them the same thing. You practice it more, you get better. And that's very true. Like the more you practice, the better you're going to get at any of these skills. The ability to do any skill, in my mind, is the practice and the length of time that you've done it. Now, there are students that I've run across that are artistically very talented. Now, they're under a different what's the best way to describe it? I look at them differently than I do when I'm teaching. I can teach anybody to draw and draw something that will make them happy, and I'll make them feel like, oh my God, that's a beautiful painting. And look, I did that painting, and they'll be so proud, and they'll be able to hang that up in a house someplace. That's a very easy thing to do. As an art teacher, I like the fact that I have the ability to do that. And I love the fact that when I'm working with students, they'll always have something, hopefully, that they'll walk away with that they can hang up in their house someplace, because they'll put the time in, and I'll show them the steps so that they can create something that they can be proud of. That's a fairly easy thing to do for anybody who's been an art teacher. The ones that amaze me and the ones that really make me smile are the ones that have that natural born talent. Now, the natural born talent ones, most of us start drawing by looking at other people's work, like what I'm doing here with Bob, and learning from Bob, and then following his procedures and his steps. In the end, what I end up doing with a lot of the works that I look at someone's and says, oh, I like that. What I'll do is I'll end up copying the stuff, their style and their approach to begin with. And then as the picture starts to get further and further along, I spend less and less time looking at their method of doing it, and then start to incorporate some of my own styles and some of my own things that I'm looking for. And then getting back to the students that were what I consider to be artists are the ones that have the ability to take an image that they see in their head and put it down on the page. I'm halfway there. I can draw, and I have drawn some pictures that I'm very proud of because they're completely my own. I just start from scratch and I start drawing. This picture, when it's done, will look like Bob's in some ways, but it will have a lot of myself put into it. That, to me, is not really an artist. A photocopy machine can do exactly the same thing. If I wanted to digitally, you can take a person's piece of art, you can take his complete piece of art, you can alter it slightly by taking it in and throwing some filters on it digitally. And it's one of the reasons why the art community sometimes frowns on digital painting, is because it is possible to fake the good artist aspect of things simply by using filters on paintings and on photographs. And I'm not saying that's not an art form. It is an art form, but it's not one that the art community has embraced lately. But it's one of the reasons why when I'm painting, I tend to record everything I'm painting, because it gives people a record of how I got there. It shows them the process. It shows them the steps. And when people say, how do you do this? I can say, just go look at my YouTube channel or go look on my Facebook channel. I've put together courses, and I'm just now finishing a course called Drawing Digitally, which will go with this YouTube channel, and I'll give it away free to whoever's interested in having it and being a beta tester for it to begin with. If you subscribe to this channel, I'll give you a free copy of the course, and then you can use it any way you want. And in the end, then people will hopefully have a method of seeing how I do these drawings, and then hopefully we'll be able to create some of their own stuff. Bob quite frequently said, keep painting and send me a photograph of your work. Now, he was back before the digital age. When I give people access to my drawing course, I like them to send it to me, and then what I can do is I can spend some time helping them make their painting better, give them suggestions. And the thing to remember, one of the questions that I was asked the other day was, are you, when you critique, what's the difference between critiquing a piece of art and critiquing an artist? And from my point of view, when you critique a piece of work, all you're doing is looking at the piece of work and telling them, based on theory, this is what I don't think is correct, and this is what I think you need to work on. As an art teacher, you tend to get a little bit farther past that, and you start to critique a person's approach. Then what you're doing is you're critiquing the artist. You're not critiquing an individual piece of art. You're critiquing the actual way the artist approaches things. And so when I said what I think is the most phenomenal thing is when an artist, and this is a critique, an artist critique, is when an artist can take what they have in their head and put it onto the page and reproduce what they would like, what they see in their head, and put that on their page. The challenge that I always have, I'll be someplace traveling and I'll say, oh my God, look at that sunset, or look at the water there. And I'll study it, I'll look at it, and then when I go home, I'll try and paint it. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. The nice thing is that we've been to Cancun frequently. And in Cancun, what we did is we go most Christmas. And so I've seen the Cancun ocean waves crashing and that scenes. And I painted that and tried to paint that so often. and that it took me forever to try and get to the point where I was very happy with one of the paintings. I've only created one painting out of all the ones I've ever done. I painted one that I really liked. And so then that is some of the challenges that I put a place upon myself. Now, I paint not because I want to sell my art and become famous. I paint because it calms me down. I am a very anxious kind of person inside. On the outside, I don't display that to a lot of people, but I use art as a method to calm myself down. And so that's a great method of art is a great method for me to do that. When it became digital, that means I could take this or my phone wherever I want, which means wherever I'm at, I can stop and draw and calm down. Major meetings, I used to sit there and draw a picture like this as the person speaking. And the nice thing in the job that I used to do in my meetings, then all my bosses knew that that's the way I listened and that's the way I learned. And so they didn't ever have a problem with it, which is great. If they ever had a problem with it, then it's not so great, because then you have an issue, right? If someone says you're not paying attention and you're making your boss upset. But I had conversations with them and say, this is the way I learn and I pay attention. And so you have to still interact in the meeting. You still have to be part of the meeting, but to have my hands busy makes me less anxious. And so that's the reason why I draw. I just happen to have drawn so much and have been an art teacher for so long that people were asking me how I created some of the stuff I did. So now they're asking me to share it. So I am. So here's another trick. So I have all these trees on, and you see how when it's not blended into when it's blended into this background, it's not as pronounced as I'd like it to be. So watch what you can do here. So if you take this and you duplicate that layer, you see how it made it a little bit darker? And I duplicate it again. Now do you see how that started to come forward? And I duplicate it again. So you see that the strength of that started to come forward. Now, if I wanted to do with this one, duplicate this, watch what happens with this. Just see how that makes that bolder as well. And so that's not such a bad idea sometimes, is to go in there and just duplicate things like that. And then what you have to do is you just take each one and you merge it to the one below it. So merge, 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 sorry, merge. Okay, you see how it started to come forward a little bit more? So it's a little bit more bold. It's a little bit more like what Bob's paintings were like. And this background here too as well. I'll take this and I'd merge that, and you merge it one more time. So you see how much that has darkened it up a little bit. And I think now I have my basic idea for my branches, and now we can turn Bob back on and listen to what Bob has to say. Now, you guys didn't hear the first part of Bob. I suggest you go in and listen to his first 9 minutes of his drawing. He's finished this whole painting in 24 minutes. I've been going for way longer than that already, so I don't think we're going to finish. Well, I'm at 41 minutes so far, so I'm way over what Bob took to paint his painting, but here we go.
The lines that come on both sides. Let your brush just have an imagination of it, so let it go. And as you play with this, you'll begin to shade areas. That means you'll take a combination of the gray and the white and mix it together, and you can shade the side of trees where more light will be coming from. It's unreal to do this. You can actually paint things like little barns or whatever with gesso, and then just come back and put an oil glaze basically over the top of them. It's that easy. You may just do one or two little white so you can see how they're done. Over here on this side, so you can just paint little white arms right off there. A little more of my water here. There we go. Now if you use a good liner brush for this, as soon as you're done, you wash it. But with good amount of water. Because your little liner brush, if you let that rascal, you let that gesso get hard, you ruined your brush. You don't you put liner brush. Yeah. Take care of your brushes, and that lasts for many years. Another little thing that's really good. Have some limbs coming from over here. You don't know where they are. They're back over there somewhere. Because the trees didn't just stop right there. Let some limbs come from over here. It doesn't matter from where. But they look at more realistic. Some little sticks and twigs. A little bit of gray gesso here and there. Make some gray arms. But isn't that neat how you can make the whole forest that easy? And that's all there is to it. Like I said, I'm not going to just spend the whole time period that we have here showing you just how to do background trees. And the one that you see in the little opening is one big monster tree. And we go back to our little foam brush, put some black gesso in it. Let's go back looking here. And I just use the foam brush to do this. Just figure out where your lips and go, and make all those noises and put a big old tree. He lives right there. I want him to come right across. There. But these little disposable foam brushes are very good for this. Yeah, so he's got a big arm. He lives out here. And over here, yeah. We'll do that. And you go back to the line brush. And once again, you can add all the details that you want into it. All of the detail. I'm just going to put a few in to show you how they're done. Because when you do those, you can see it totally differently. It's going to be better. You know, it's better than this, but because you'll have unlimited time and patience, and your imagination is probably better. So you'll make beautiful things. And when you're doing these, I'm going to put transparent color over this pretty soon. Try all the different color combinations. Transparent and still not transparent color. Makes beautiful, beautiful things. Now, down here on the bottom, we're going to put some little indications. You can use a little paper towel. I'll just use this little foam brush. Think where the light's coming through. I'm just going to take a little foam brush and just touch. Just touch. You can do it with anything. See there? Just gesso. Just white gesso and going into some gray gesso. But I want the edges to be nice and bright. Yeah, see? Maybe over here on the other side. Just a little bit more of that. So we'll bring all this together. It's up to you when you want these things to it. Back into the gray so it gets a little duller. Here and there, we can even take a little black. Just play these back and forth. So you get all these beautiful variations. There. Right in here. Whatever. Doesn't matter. You use the brush any way you want to, sideways, straight on. And each way will create new and unique different effects. You know this way. Maybe right in there, like that. And then you want to put a little path in there. I'm using blue, black, and gray mixed together here. Figure out where your path is. And just take this little foam brush and basically right here. See there? That's all. That's all. And just like the way morning you painting, you need to lay that path down in there a little bit. So we put a bush over here on this side. Just like so. And the front of it to be darker up there because it will be closer to the light source. I like it. Okay, I think that will pretty much show us how to do the little background. As I say, I would let it dry between each and every layer. Now, I want to show you the completed painting. So I've been here, and I've got a canvas here that's all dry that I've prepared exactly the same way. So allow me to step in front of this for just a second and change this canvas. And put it around this outer edge. So we can just show you how easy this painting is. Once you have your gesso in there, it really makes it very simple to do. And I think at this time, we really haven't run the colors across the screen that you need to do yours along with us. Okay, while they're doing that, I take a little bit of liquid clear and cover the entire canvas, just enough to be sure that the canvas is covered from one end to the other. But a thin coat, just a thin coat. Once again, allow your gesso to dry completely before you do this, because you cannot mix oils and your gesso together while you're painting. You have to let the gesso dry. Yeah. This is the hardest part of it. If you can put the liquid clear on, that's when it's easy. Yeah. to a very thin, even place, like electric fluid. Okay. I guess using long horizontal vertical strokes to show that it's distributed across the canvas evenly. And doing that, and you think possibly that you may have too much of the liquid fluid. I'll take a paper towel and wipe it. What's left to be just right. And let me show you how easy this is to. I'm ready to small amount of fairy glue. Fairy glue. Very little paint's required for this painting. Very, very little. You can always add more as quickly. Start at the top. And all they're doing in reality is putting in glazes right over the top of our gesso. Isn't that fantastic? This makes some of these gorgeous little paintings. And they're wonderful to do for friends and family because they'll just be amazed at how fast they happen. I'm going to take it right near just the tops of these little bushy looking things that we made. There. It's looking clear and the neatest and the work for that little really just right. Now, they have gorgeous deep blue. Now the edges of it, you're going to take a little pressing glue. Pressing glue is much stronger than fairy glue. It's very, very strong. You do the pressing glue, you just do the corners. In order to make this look lighter, you need to make the corners look darker. And you'll accomplish that just like so. Alright, as far as I'm going with that. Now maybe, let's see here, I've got several brushes for it. Right in here, I'm going to take Indian yellow. Once again, you need very little paint. Indian yellow is transparent. Just look at here. That's the reason I put the Indian yellow over the other ones we use. And we'll start right in here. Yeah, we just cover the whole thing. It doesn't matter. Like so. With Indian yellow. But notice we intentionally let the blue come down. The reason is because when you touch it now with this yellow, it's going to create a greenish cast. It's not going to be bright green, but it'll give the indication to the eye that there's green there. If you want it bright green, you can use satin green, which is a very transparent green. Or you can just allow more of the blue to come in. Either way. Now, you take some alizarin crimson, satin green, mix it together. Even more of the crimson and sap. I want it to the reddy side. You know what? And take a little bit of that on a 2-inch brush. And right, let's start at the base. I want this to be the darkest, so we'll start here and we'll copy it. There. So it'll give it a very dark look back in there. You bring it up to wherever you want it to stop. Isn't that gorgeous? And it's so easy. Once again, if you've never painted in your whole life, this is one way to try. This is one way to try. Because you can't make a mistake really. It's so easy. Now some people are very happy and very satisfied with their painting if it stops right there. And it's up to you. Pour a little bit of that color so it looks like there's some on these tree trunks. See that? You can do that if you want to. But let's do it. Let's make this brighter, like the sun. You know, when you walk through the woods, you can see the sun in the background, and it just burns through the trees. And it's so bright. Sometimes you can't hardly even make out the tree trunks. It's so bright. I'm going to take just the corner. You can see it. So just the corner of the brush. You go right into a little bit of the white. Let's stick in there. Figure out where the sun lives up in here. Get mine, well, I think it's right behind this lid here. Start right over the lip. Because once again, to me, when you look at the sun that bright, it's like it just burns right through that tree branch here. You can't see it. It's probably something in your eyes. I'll have to get an optometrist to explain all that to me. But this is the way I see it. There. But just go right over it. But look at that sun coming through there now. time I wanted to make effects like this, but I didn't really know how to do it and make it look right. And then when they came out with all the gessos like this, it made it so easy. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. And you really should be able to do anything that you want to do. Right. You have to decide how bright the sun is and how far it goes out. Totally and completely up to you. But look at it, it's so bright it almost hurts the eyes. Sometimes it's fun to make like light rays zinging through there. You know, if the whole painting is red, that's hard to do because when you put it across there, it's going to take your red paint. But this is dry, really. The gesso is dry. So we can, let's see, here to show you. All you got to do is just decide where it lives. Touch it and then give it a little full. Because you don't want to destroy anything. Isn't that easy? See the light coming right through those trees? See, just flare it. Look at it. That easy. Isn't that exciting? I paint thousands of paintings, and I'm sorry I get so excited about this. But it amazes me how beautifully this works. There. And maybe even, I don't know, wherever. You make the decision. But that easy. You can have a painting that's just absolutely unreal. And then it's just a matter of going back and you can add in all kinds of little details that you want to. You put little sticks and twigs. It's a good time to get a little spoil. We've shown some of the shows. Good time to paint a little spoil in here. Anything else that you want. Let's see here. I want to make this a little greener. We've got a few minutes left here. I'm going to brush it with the blue one. I'm going to add a little more of that blue right here. Show you how you can change this so easy. Maybe. Now we can take a little Indian yellow color. And this will become brighter green. It's up to you. You have to make that decision. Wherever you want it. But that's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Okay, you put our light blues back here. And that's basically all there is to this little painting. When you do it, experiment a little. You'll find all kinds of wonderful things that you can do that I had really thought about yet. Let's take a little bit of red. And I'm going to sign this little rascal. We'll sign it here so you can see it. And with that, I think we're going to have a finished painting. I really hope you try this stuff. And if you like it, if you'd send me a photograph of what you do. This looks like a really good some of the pictures we can do. People doing fantastic things. Until I hear from you, I'd like to wish you happy painting. You have this.
And that's the end of Bob's painting. In 24 minutes, he finished that painting. So I'm just going to pause him. And then I'm going to continue to work on mine. So what he did is he put this very large tree through the middle. And so I'm going to do the same. know if my pencils run out. No, it's still drawing. Okay, so again, you make a copy of that. And then what he did from there is he took the whole thing and then he did a wash over top of it. Now, the wash over top can be done in a couple different ways. One, he's using a blue color like this. So you see how it starts to get picked up there over top of everything? So then the question is, do I want it to blend in everything and to be affected by what's there? Or do I want it to go on another layer? So let's put it on another layer and see if it does exactly the same thing, but doesn't get as wrapped up in the rest of the painting. Now, this to me is 100 times easier than it was when I was doing it on my computer with my mouse. Simply because I have a lot more control and because the colors start to come out. It's just a layer, it's a wash, If you're a watercolor painter, you understand what wash means. It's a wash of the color. And it's not as you're not actually painting it on so much as coloring it. It almost becomes like a paint by numbers type of thing. And so it's a very cool way to get the details that you want in your picture very quickly. And so he did a very like that background in like that, and then slowly he went to a darker blue in the corners. And on the outer edges. So the farther you get away from that middle area, the more you concentrate on the different colors there. And then along here, he got into the yellows. And so he started in the a really bright yellow. And because there's a lot of blue that would have been in this area, you can see how it starts to come up. And you get some, it turns into almost a green type color. As you put this over top, you can see how it starts to come into it ends up green, sort of blending. You see how big it is up top? Now, you'd like to control that a little bit, so you're going to bring this down a little bit. And then it won't go all the way to the top. It'll keep it down here in these bushes that you have down in the foreground, which is kind of cool. And then he went to a darker. Then you go to the red. Now the red was a little bit of a browny color, so more of that color. It's a very rich, dark color. So every once in a while, when you're drawing, especially when you're doing that kind of stuff, it's hard to tell whether or not your Apple Pencil is doing anything or not. So I just plugged in my Apple Pencil for a minute, and I'm going to use my finger while my Apple Pencil's charging. I see that, you see how that color's gone in there, and I don't know if I'm actually getting any of this color over top of it. So I think it's time to go to the advanced, and let's see what we're going to do with size with heavy pressure. Let's make the size heavy. Size with the light pressure. Light pressure. Yeah, that's fine. Flow with the heavy pressure. Flow with some light pressure. And a stamp. Spacing. Rotations off. Let's go with a different shape than that. Don't want that. It's too powerful, right? So let's go back into that. I don't mind it, but I want to take the power off. Flow. That's better. But I don't like the stamp. The stamp is too wide. So you just Take it off, start over again. Let's go back into here. Let's see what the stamp is. I like that stamp. What was that other stamp we were using? This one? Yeah, that's more like it. Again, it's almost too bold still. See how the blue came on a little bit softer than that, which is nice. So the hardness, bring that way down. And that's more like it. The higher up it is on this, the farther in front it is. And so she really doesn't like to be bounced around with it. Way too big. Okay, so I'm going to save it at this stage. And then I'm going to come back in and fix it because there isn't any rays coming out of there yet on my computer, because the computer seemed to have, it had a starburst, and I kind of like that. And so I want to try it there. The one thing that I may do here is the outside edges aren't dark enough on it. And so I'm just going to try to put a vignette. I don't even know if that's the right word or how you say it, but I'm going to try and put that around the outside of it. I'm going to just try to take all the advanced settings off of this one and go down to take the shape of the nib off, take the texture off, bring this way down like that. Make sure the opacity is nice and low. And then I'm just going to try and darken up the corners here somehow. So we'll see if I can make that work or not. I don't know if they're... See, I don't like that gray color as much as the dark blue is what I'm looking for. So. And see, there's a setting on my computer for that too. It's just a straight vignette, but you can see how you can darken up some of the corners a little bit. But I also want a little bit of a light shading through here. And also put it darker. And so it has dark shadows coming off of it as well. And so let's go down to a light yellow. Like that. Okay, so let's put one of these on here. And let's see if it's possible to do that. So let's see what we have for brushes. I want a synthetic brush like that. I'm going to try it the way Bob said to try it, so let's see if this will work. Now, for this setting to work, it needs to be Tried it, didn't like it. Okay. So, gallery, save a copy. Thanks for watching, you guys. The next section you'll see will be, or the next section, I'll put it all together later on, will be on how I did how I finished it, like the post-production stuff. Thanks for watching, you guys. One of these, 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. Woo! I'll talk to you later.